Welcome everyone to my review of the Carnival at the End of the World deck. I don't really do many reviews, so this is one of the few that I've done so far where I felt like I got to know the deck better so that I could really critically talk about how the deck works for me and whether I like it or not. If you do enjoy this kind of reviews, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know whether first impressions help, whether reviews help, whether this video in particular was good for you. If not, please feel free to give me any feedback. I'll be more than happy to hear. So there are quite a lot of things I'm going to cover today, including the box, the card stock, the card size, the art style, and my favorite parts of the deck, the book that I had to buy alongside of the deck, and also a full walkthrough of the deck. So if you're interested in only that part, skip to the end. I should have the timestamps here. Okay, just to start us off, I'm going to talk about the box that came with this deck. I love this box. So some people don't like tuck boxes, but this tuck box is amazing. I don't know if you can see that, but it's completely matte. It feels very good. It feels very good in the hands. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't know if that's ASMR to you, but it's a really lovely, sturdy box. So out of all the tuck boxes I've ever had, most of them are glossy, shiny, and smooth feeling. This one is really nice. This one is so matte, and I feel like the font and everything is so classy. I feel like it's made very well. So I don't know if you can see that, but it actually separates a bit so you can put the cards more easily in. It states a tarot deck invented and realized by MSSRS, I think that's Mr. or Mrs. Orlovsky and Falke of the Trompe Fledermaus. Okay, so the real makers are Khan and Selesnik. I will put their link in the description box below. I bought this during their Black Friday sale along with the book also, so we can talk about that. But I really wanted to mention how much I love the box. It was really, really lovely to open to and look at. Even now, I'm still loving the box. I don't think I'll ever get rid of this box. The next thing I want to talk about is the cardstock. They are not gilded. The cardstock are here. It's similar to the Pagan Otherworld, so if you have that deck, it's exactly the same. They use the same makers. They shuffle really well. They're a little big. I will try to show you how big they are. So compared to the standard size tarot, for example the Buddha tarot, it's slightly bigger. So in my hands it does feel like a bit of a handful sometimes, especially when you're trying to shuffle overhand like this. So it does feel like a bit of a handful, but someone with average size hands like mine, you should be able to do it relatively okay. It's a bit of a stretch. I know Boho Tarot, for example, she trimmed the deck and it looks well fitting her hands, but I love the borders in this deck, so I don't think I can ever do that. I think the borders really go well with the art of the deck. It is slightly bigger, but I don't find it difficult to shuffle. I can even riffle shuffle this quite easily. The cardstock is a joy to shuffle. It feels really nice in the hand. I don't know if you can hear that. And yeah, I really enjoy the cardstock here. The linen finish is amazing. It doesn't have an edge, but I don't think it needs any edging because there are colors coming from the back of the deck. I don't know if you can see that seeping through in a way. We can talk about the art style. I really enjoy this deck just because I think I talked about my deck preferences. At the beginning of this year and the end of last year, I began to prefer decks that had some sort of one spirit per card. And this deck definitely has that feeling. Each card has their own character, just one by one. So it's really interesting. You can see all this as the character models again and again. Just beautiful. I don't know how to describe if some people are curious about the diversity of the deck. I have not done a count. I've seen animals, I've seen many people being represented. I can't say for sure that there were Asian people, for example, or people of color, but I feel like it's a pretty out there deck, so I don't know if that really applies. For example, the King of Pentacles is made of bread, and you can see his little bread penis there. So I don't know how to talk about diversity with this deck. I enjoyed this deck in its current form. I can talk about my favorite cards in the deck. Maybe it's time. I'll only show you some of the cards that not only favorites but might be a bit confusing for me, and we can talk about those. So the Nine of Wands is something that I really enjoy in the deck. It's a very funny card because, do you know, I'm sure you can see this, but it's a Jesus-like character being held up by wands with a cockerel on his standing on top of his privates. So it is a funny card. I don't know how to really read this. He's in a vulnerable position, clearly. He is one of my more favorite cards of the deck, and at the same time I find it hard to reconcile with the person who is defensive, who is trying to fight a war in the traditional RWS. So in the book, it states, "In what seems the darkest hour of night, after faith and hope has departed, one left for dead hears the sound of the rooster crowing, and then finds there is still yet strength to endure until dawn comes." This is one of the entries in the book that kind of makes sense to the imagery of the card. The sad thing about this book is that not all the entries really make sense with the card. Let me talk about the book in further detail after talking about some of my favorite cards. Another card that is not a favorite, maybe we can talk about how some of these cards are a bit confusing. It would be the Eight of Wands. I found the Eight of Wands confusing ever since I received it when I did a reading, because Eight of Wands is supposed to be a card where it's fast, it's furious, it's swift. The RWS deck has it so cutthroat. It's just the pips themselves racing through the air, and yet in this deck it's a woman sitting on a pangolin. I think it's a pangolin or a armadillo. I have no idea. I'm not good with animals, but she's sitting on the pangolin, and to me, a pangolin is not particularly fast an animal. We can, if you compare it to a Sandshrew in Pokemon, they move really fast, but I don't see that. Are pangolins fast? She doesn't appear particularly fast to me. So I really don't know how to connect this to the meaning. So let's talk about how it could be some sort of other meaning. Maybe, we don't need to interpret it that way. That's the reason why I bought this book, to really try to understand these question marks in my head. The book just says, "Make haste towards that which bears fruit and promises harmony. Leave behind what won't be needed where you're going. Messengers travel light." So messengers travel light, but even though she's naked, she has all these fruit and heavy things around her. So I guess, there is that feeling where it does connect a little, but then why a pangolin? It doesn't explain. Another card that I really enjoyed was the Nine of Swords. No real reason for this being one of my favorite cards, apart from how it reminds me of Amon from the Goetia. And this is clearly a person underneath a costume. So I like that kind of carnival feeling. It goes the same way for the Two of Cups. The Two of Cups is also two people, wearing animal heads and just facing each other. Very sweet card. I do feel like that kind of sincerity really comes through in that card. Like that carnival feeling where, they are wearing the animal mask on their heads. That is really cute to me. Another card that I really enjoy is the Eight of Cups. The Eight of Cups is so great. Just a giant jellyfish, with teacups and fish in the little teacups. So, the Eight of Cups is really about moving forwards, leaving things behind. And looking at the book again, I feel like you don't really see this in the imagery also. The Eight of Cups here, it says, you've been trying many different cups and it's so disappointing, you just want to quit. So you spend a lot of time tasting and testing, but it's just time for you to move on. There's nothing for you left here. You don't really see that in the jellyfish. So why a jellyfish? Why all the cups around him? I guess that the entry answers that part, but it doesn't really answer the imagery why you chose this jellyfish to represent that kind of feeling. I really like the tower image as well. The tower doesn't seem extremely destructive in this deck. It feels more of a stable nature, which also doesn't really point towards the RWS. At the same time, I can't help but really like this image, because in the Lenormand, the tower is something like an institution, a building, something stable. And this is the kind of stability I kind of expect before I learned the tarot. When I saw the tower, it does feel like this stable, happy creature. Even though I like the imagery and this is one of my favorite cards in the deck, I don't know if I want to read it the same way. I don't know if I want to read it as disruption or changes. So if you take a look at the deck, it's really interesting. They actually do use it a bit differently. They talk about how a tower is built to be a lightning rod. Other cards that I really liked were the Ten of Swords and the Six of Cups, but the Six of Pentacles is one that really boggles my mind also. It's just someone, jumping a flame. There are some cards here that, don't really make too much sense to me, and I hope as I work with it, I can begin to draw those connections alongside with reading the book. Maybe that's how I can get to know the deck better. At the same time, every single image is so visceral to me in this deck. Every image, you can't help but feel something or think of something when you see an image. Look at the Ten of Swords here. I really like this. You can see the crabs under him. You can see he's just packages. So there's some sort of message that's being stopped, or a message they're refusing to hear in the Ten of Swords, that kind of feeling. I know this deck doesn't work for everyone, but this deck works very well for me. I would even say that out of all the decks I've received so far, this is the closest to a soul deck. Even though I don't like that term, I don't believe in that term, this is a deck that I felt something with every single image, and I feel like I can read it. We'll talk about the book now. Is this book worth the money? No. I have to tell you up front, no, it wasn't worth the money. This was, I think, about $20 US, excluding shipping. And it's not thick, it's a thin book. I cannot buy a deck without its companion book. It just feels empty to me. It doesn't show the full image of the card. I don't need it to be colored, but these are silhouettes. For the minors in particular, they don't always connect the imagery to the actual meaning. Sometimes they just tell you the meaning. I did some examples like earlier in the video. You see a pangolin, but it doesn't explain pangolin. You see a jellyfish, it doesn't explain the jellyfish. It just talks about the part that makes sense and then leaves the harder part out. I believe the artist wrote this book, but maybe they just didn't know that we wouldn't see the obvious things that are to them, or maybe they just want to leave some symbols for interpretation, but I bought this book for that. I also bought this book so I could understand the extra cards better. It's 3 bat creatures and 3 out of the 4 elements, and I don't know why they did 3 out of the 4 elements, but it is what it is. They chose to omit Earth. I kind of can understand why esoterically, because Earth is such a different element from everything else. Even talking about the Thoth, about how the major arcana has 3 of the elements, they don't have the Earth element represented in the major arcana. So esoterically, I kind of can understand. I just wish they wrote about that in this book. I wish there was a section saying extra cards or cards in this deck and cover, the Inferno. How is this different from the Ten of Wands? Or I think it's Judgment in the majors, because Judgment is fire. And Tempest, instead of Fool being the air, why do we have a Tempest here? Or why do we not take the Ten of Swords as that, or the Ace of Swords as that kind of air energy, the Deluge, which is clearly water? So why not the Ace of Cups? Why are we having this extra card? And then the 3 cards, the 3 characters, Orlovsky, supposedly the designer, Dr. Falke, also the designer, the fictional designer, and Madame Lulu. Makes me think of the unfortunate events, but she apparently wrote this book, so the voice here is really consistent. I like that about the book, but this is why I feel like the book isn't worth the money, because it ends up explaining the RWS meanings for the cards and ties a little back to the imagery in the card. The major arcana part is really good. They do have longer passages for the major arcana, and they do explain more. In good conscience, I can't recommend this. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I will end this review here saying that this deck is definitely worth buying for me. I really enjoyed the deck. I really still enjoy the deck. I can't stop using it in my Instagram. If you check it out, I keep using this deck again and again, and I find it's an easy read, and the card stock is magical. It's really good to shuffle. Anyone with the pagan art, other worlds would know. And I don't really have much bad things to say about the deck apart from some of the imagery being a bit confusing and the book not really explaining it. It's a 9 out of 10 deck for me. I really enjoy using this deck, and I'm going to cut off to show you the walkthrough of the full deck if you're interested. If you enjoyed this review, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know how I've done for this review and what else you want to hear about decks in general when I review them. Enjoy the walkthrough!
you.